Memories. Memories. Got lots of love, love. 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 Got lots of love, love.
3v3.
Everpro Esports trying to find what angle they can, trying to find somebody out of position.
They're gonna go through on this. Oh, what a wall. White gonna go in.
It's going to be a really, really interesting one.
Oh my god. All of this competition could be so damn close, so I cannot wait for us to finally decide who's going to be the champion. We are expecting some chaos, some great moments.
Beast Mode has killed 3. Only gonna really need that rampage, so it's gonna clear it out. Santi gonna get themselves a big old 4K. Santi's getting rid of 3, clearing out the house.
That is crazy.
Nunji actually kills 3 people.
This team feels entirely different on this faster composition. Now Saga4 is hanging around, getting onto the high ground. Post bomb's gonna stick under Leaky. They're not gonna be able to survive it at the end of the day. Manages to find a 3K.
Rio shoving this Ana into a corner. Woo! One more for the road for Rio.
That is all signs go. Melophobia with 3 Melophobia. Start the fight. They'll end the fight. Oh my god. Beaglebus, they have to play aggressively into this energy. Popping off in a moment where you needed just that. Ruby in that backline. Oh, the flick. Looking for it. Oh my goodness. The fourth one as well. Do they get the ace? They get the ace.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to CGL. We are here in our NA Open Division in the playoffs. We are fully in this bracket here. We have a winners round final here for you folks tonight. It is Boop Troop versus the Zodiacs. 2 teams coming into this who are undefeated, haven't lost a single map so far in the playoff run. So this is the first true test of both of these teams. It is Rags and Shadowfang bringing you all the action here tonight. Shadowfang, I'm expecting this one to be a serious knockdown drag-out brawl between these 2 teams.
I think this is going to be a super highly competitive game because you got Boop Troop, Zodiacs, and YE Snowfall, probably our 3 strongest teams in the tier. And we didn't actually get to see Boop Troop participate in the mid-season tournament because they were just so in and out. Like, they would either be here and 3-0 people, or they would not show up and forfeit. That's pretty much what Boop Troop did the entire season here. So it's good to see, like, the playoffs, we actually get to see them come in at full force. And the same thing with the Zodiacs, because they did have a game against each other earlier in the season, but again, as I mentioned previously, Boop Troop forfeited because, you know, it's just kind of, it was just a coin flip for the most part, whether that would happen or not.
Yeah, crucially, that was Boop Troop's only loss in the regular season, so Zodiacs technically do have a victory over them in the books, if you want to count it. It certainly is there in their season scoreline, but yeah, Zodiacs here trying to very much prove their mettle against kind of the dominant team here in the bracket. So we can see exactly how it is that we got to this point here. Yeah, both of them had pretty solid runs through the first and second rounds, sending 4 total teams down to that lower bracket here and not taking a single map off these 2 dominant teams who are now facing off against each other.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a crazy competitive game here tonight, and I do believe Primordius and Subsun are actually airing right now on a different CGL channel. I want to say CGL 3, perhaps. We have a lot of games going at the same time right now, but I do believe that other game is going to be airing at the same time.
Yeah, our Open Division, very full of teams here, and there's still a lot of matches to play here before we get to the Grand Finals, but of course, the winner of this one gets to easily coast into that Grand Finals slot. The loser will get sent down to lower bracket and have to fight their way through another couple games after this one just to make it back into the Grand Finals for a potential rematch against the victor here. So, yeah, you certainly do not want to be put in that position. But of course, folks, the first map of tonight's series, of course, we got plenty of Overwatch to play before we get to the Grand Finals here. It's Lijiang Tower, and Shadowfang, I'm just so shocked. I'm just so surprised that Lijiang Tower is where we're going for our first map of this series.
You know, I have a very common saying that I, too, am a fan of vanilla ice cream, right? You know, we all love it, and we can just eat it up all night. And here we are going into the first ban phase, though, for map number 1. Zodiac's going to be getting that first ban here tonight. And with it being map 1, it's kind of like I feel like it's almost a shot in the dark for the most part. You don't really know what either team is really feeling just yet. And so with that being said, I feel like something like a Lucio is a safe ban. You can go for something like a Kiriko. You could even get creative and do something like a Symmetra on a map like this. There's quite a few options. I did not think that was about to happen right there. I'm really surprised right now.
Well, look at you go, already prognosticating. That is a ban on the Symmetra for Zodiacs. All right, so DPS ban is off the table for our opposition here for this first map of the series. So it's going to be either tank or support. I agree. I think a Lucio ban is always very fascinating out the gate here. That really shows a different tempo that they want to run on control here, where Lucio is often just the backbone of so many of these compositions on these more rush-focused maps here. So anytime you're not running that, anytime you ban that out, it does signal that you've got a different game plan. It does signal that you've got something interesting up your sleeve here. But of course, I think a tank ban is also plenty possible here. We've seen a lot of variety, at least in some of our divisions so far, but it's the Wu Yang ban. All right, so I'm expecting your very standard Lucio, Kiriko backline coming into this.
Yeah, it pretty much takes out the ability to have that slower backline, right? So it's like it's almost the opposite of the Lucio ban. You take away the ability to do the poke composition here now by just removing the Wu Yang from the picture, and as you said, we're basically going to be stuck on Kiriko Lucio. I would be shocked to see anything different from that going into this first map. But starting off, we've got Boop Troop here, we've got Ghostin and Doc, and then we've got MSRI on that tank. We got Regime and a Salmon. It's salmon. I don't know why. I swear it's like when you see it in front of your face, you say it how it's written, but that's not how you say that word. It's salmon.
I'm glad we all got there at the end of the day. Yes, folks, we have on our other side of things here, the Zodiacs. We have Sterling and Raz, of course, looking at Dexter as well as Zizo and Mini P.E.K.K.A. So quite a bit of flexibility on this team. You've got 3 hovers for the support in terms of favorite heroes out here. So they certainly have flexibility. We will, of course, be seeing one of them playing tank. So don't be surprised, folks. There's no way we're getting 3 supports in here, sad to say, as I am. But yeah, they certainly have a depth of their roster and a lot of flexibility of their hero and even role choices coming out the gate.
Oh, absolutely. And that's what you expect to see, especially at this open tier. For you to be able to compete at this highest tier that we have in CGL, you have to be incredibly flexible, and you have to be capable of playing really any hero on the roster to like the highest possible tier. But I mean, especially we're going to be running on like a Lijiang Tower here tonight. I would be surprised to see anything outside of a Ramatra rush-based composition. That maybe we see a dive style, but it seems a lot more like that Rom Brawl style is where teams are leaning more towards these days.
Yeah, certainly the case, more generally. And I think, with still as dominant a strategy as Reaper and Zarya has been, both of those heroes entirely untouched coming into this map here. So if a team wants to run, one of those, tried and true, very safe compositions, neither of them have really been touched by changes in the patch notes of recent days. So still looking really solid if you want to, especially on, I'm thinking Control Center, if you want to be able to find those flank angles, find those crazy drop downs on that Reaper, and have, of course, a bubble to back you up with that Zarya, plenty possible. Now, you're not going to have a sim teleporter, so having these heroes who can teleport themselves around and have their own hypermobility, I think is really crucial coming into this.
Well, and to add on to that, if you do decide to run that Zarya composition, but you don't like the Reaper, you could also go for the Venture. Once you get that perk for Venture where your cooldowns come back at 300% when you're casting your ultimate, it's just absurd. You just dig in the ground, charge straight at somebody, and just burn all your cooldowns, and it's like, oh wait, I have them again. Let's run this way now. It is crazy the way you can just get around the map just by having your cooldowns back 3 times as fast.
Certainly is. And yeah, we've seen plenty of that venture in where sometimes these teams that love to run the Reaper and get it banned out, they still will make that flex DPS pick. So plenty of opportunity, plenty of options for both of these teams here. So looking out the gate, of course, there is no guarantee until we actually see them roll out the spawn doors. No one can make a cheeky sim teleport, so kind of expect that once they leave the spawn, that'll be the hero they stick on coming into our first objective here. Dexter already swapping things up, not that Zarya, but instead the Ramattra potentially coming out the gate here. I would be surprised if we see Molly come out on this Doomfist. There's a world where we do, but I would not consider Doomfist to be really in the position right now to really make that kind of an impact. Of course, environmental kills are always a joyful time, and it's the D.Va instead from Molly. I think that is a really solid play, even into this Ramattra, of course, really mitigating a lot of that long-range poke.
Yeah, I do actually like this matchup, generally speaking. What you're going to have to do, though, as the D.Va is kind of almost ignore the Ramattra and go for these squishier DPS and support targets.
Yeah, that is certainly the angle of attack you're looking for, but as we are beginning the first fights next to the objective itself, you have Dexter immediately spotting out Molly, trying to find an inroad onto that tank, but no, finding that disengage as the D.Va gets away to a safe position here. The rest of Boop Troop, they're rotating around the higher route here on the objective, a little bit towards the north of the point itself, whereas Zodiacs already in control of the point. They flipped it into their favor before this fight has really drawn first blood here. No one's fallen just yet on either side of this engagement, but people falling very low on the side of Boop Troop here. Doc has to beat a retreat, has to play very carefully, get healed up by Regime and Salmon. Salmon, of course, here on this Ana, not usually what we see paired with this Lucio, but of course, with the very close range you have here on Night Market, I mean, the run back is not really too long whatsoever here, so if you want to have those crazy nano plays, this is certainly the place and time to do so. Still, no one has fallen. This engagement drawing out longer and longer, but as I say it, Sterling finds that first pick onto Regime. Without their Lucio, they are dead in the water in terms of speed on the side of Boop Troop, but already that nano built, and it is Mari benefiting from it here, surging forward on this D.Va, pushing the rest of the Zodiacs back off the objective here, but still, percentage ticking up in Zodiac's favor. The point has not been flipped over to Boop Troop just yet, so even without these supports, they still contain this fight. They still keep things rolling, but finally a DMX on to Mari. That's got to be the end of this engagement here. Not able to finish off, just clean up that baby D.Va right now, and that looks like it will be it for Boop Troop. They're going to have to rethink their approach.
Oh, yes, they certainly will. They do manage to get a flip in the middle of that fight, though, so you do take 11% in your favor, saving a little bit if you're Boop Troop. But, yeah, I really do like this switching. We're switching the characters. My goodness gracious. Boop Troop swapping over to the Ramattra now, and I think that's going to work significantly better just because you weren't really able to find any angles to get onto these squishy targets. Dexter doing such a great job of just not really dying.
Yeah, it's just so tough, especially facing into these pummels out from that Nemesis form. Annihilation rolling for Dexter alongside that sound barrier. I mean, that is essentially a clean fight win there on the back of those ultimates. Overclock rolling for Doc, desperate to find something as the dust settles, but we're up to 90% control here for Zodiacs. It's going to be tough for Boop Troop to find a real good fight off the back of this one. Mario already swapping over to that Doomfist. Once again, this time it is for real, determined just to find a touch on the objective, but there is finally boots on the ground, but that sound barrier had to be spent for Regime just to get people out of the doorway, just to get them into the objective. The point is flipped over into Boop Troop's favor, so this is some percentage being accrued here for them, but they are not exactly on optimal comp here. Mari just able to find a little bit of defensive hold, but that Doomfist is just a little bit too vulnerable to everything that Zodiacs have at their disposal.
It is going to be difficult for this Doomfist to stay alive. If you're Boop Troop, you can build up to this Kitsune Rush, and that has to be your win condition here. And with that Pulse Bomb going wide from Sterling, I think this is going to be a really difficult fight for Zodiacs to win. You really just want to try and force out this Kitsune Rush and probably back off for the next fight.
Salmon just able to clean up as Ghosting gets the better of the opposite, and Sterling not able to find that pick off on the Tracer, but we're trading blow for blow here. It is 2 lost on either side, and crucially, Salmon with that Kitsune Rush ready to go is one of the ones to fall for Boop Troop, so this is purely in the neutral here between these two teams. No ults fully ready here. Doc cleans up Raz, but Mari falling down does mean without your tank, it's going to be really tough to anchor on this objective. The point gets flipped for Zodiacs. No one can touch for Boop Troop, and that is a solid move and cleanup from Mini P.E.K.K.A onto Regime. Finally, the Kitsune Rush layered over the objective here, but is it too little too late? No, 2 kills here for Boop Troop, make it a third as Doc lands a headshot onto Sterling. It is a flip once again. Boop Troop are not out of this one just yet.
That was huge by Zodiacs to flip that point. You literally get out Pulse Bomb right there. You lose Dexter in the process, but at least the Pulse Bomb is gotten rid of. You can reset a little bit. And again, now I'm starting to get a little concerned if I'm Zodiacs because you're not getting to these ultimates. You're in the ballpark of them, but you really need to have these ults online. And there's already an Overclock and the Meteor Strike that's going to be online for Boop Troop before you manage to get any of your ults online if you're Zodiacs.
Yeah, full credit where it's due. Mari's been making this Doomfist work. I mean, we had our doubts certainly coming out the gate. You just want to touch the objective here, but still, she eats so much damage just coming into the fight, but does have that escape button of the Meteor Strike, and there just goes for it. We'll see where exactly that Doomfist lands. Of course, it's right on the objective, directly on top of the heads of the opposition, as Boop Troop, with that overclock out from Doc, is just the thing to hold the gate against the Zodiacs. And what looked like a full cap from Zodiacs at multiple points just is able to get drug out by Boop Troop, and they win at the end of these engagements here. Just incredible staying power.
It was just like I said there right before that final fight, Zodiacs never managed to build up another set of ultimates. They burnt all those ultimates in the first fight that they lost to Boop Troop, flipping that point, and they never built up to another set of them. Like, that was kind of absolute dominance from Boop Troop once that happened, because I'm just now realizing that was like 3-4 fights that happened, and Zodiacs did not manage to build up to another set of ultimates in all that time. So you can't really let that happen if you're Zodiacs. You can't ult dump like that and not get really anything out of it, because then you end up in a very bad situation, you might say.
Yeah, Zodiacs very much trying to maintain their mental game coming into this second point. Something they surely felt like they had coming out the gate here, but Surly opening things off with a bang, cleaning up Ghostin. There's only one Tracer on the field right now, and as we have Salmon taking a bit of a dive off the edge, that is going to be a lot of sustainability gone here for Boop Troop. They still managed to get 2 kills into the bargain. Even when this team is losing, they are not out until every single one of their players is in the ground. We are contesting this objective here as Regime is just rotating around the high ground on that Lucio, unable to really answer this long-range pressure coming in. As Zodiacs, yep, the toes back in for Boop Troop once again. Finally, the point gets unlocked here for the Zodiacs. They will begin accruing that percentage, but crucially, the entire roster of Boop Troop is back in this fight here. If they can keep everyone alive as this next fight truly kicks off. Nope, a Regime once again gets sent into the drink here by Mini P.E.K.K.A. These Lucios have been having such a duel already throughout the course of this 1.5 points so far, and Mari just having such a tough time. Dexter really putting the hurt on this Zarya. I don't know if the Zarya is going to have a great time into this Ramatra as the Ramatra starts heating up.
It's tough for the Zarya to really survive right there so far, because you have an isolated target essentially for the Tracer, the Ramatra, and the Sojourn to all look at consecutively, and it's just kind of easy to burn Zarya down, right? Because Zarya would eventually win that fight out in the long fight, but you don't have the time to wait for that charge to get built up.
Yeah, crucially has to play so carefully with those bubbles. Doesn't have any armor to benefit you in the long run there. Mini P.E.K.K.A. once again has been massive with these boops. The environmental potential is insane, and that is a very hungry Ramatra rolling forward. Did not spend the Annihilation, though, with the Kitsune Rush laid out from Zexo. That is just enough to keep the team alive and kicking. Crucial that they did not spend any more ults than that one. That's exactly what you want to see from them, Shadowfang.
Oh, yes, that was incredibly smart by Zodiacs, not spending any more than that one ultimate. Boop Troop gonna have the Kitsune Rush advantage now, and Mini P.E.K.K.A. I think really needs to get up to the sound barrier quickly.
Yeah, that is an early rush, but that is, oh, the Ravenous Vortex off the edge. Salmon just went and dropped like a stone. Oh, that is a devastating loss of your Kiri just as this fight was opening. Such an excellent start to this engagement here for Boop Troop with the rush, but just not able to keep the backline alive as the environmental kills rack up for Zodiacs. We have 10% left for them to take this one.
Not too much longer here for the Zodiacs, and they're about to have 3 ultimates online. Pulse Bomb, Annihilation, and that sound barrier going to be available for them. And all you really got to worry about is this overclock.
Presence on the objective. Doc has proven to be very deadly with this, but in the face of that sound barrier, there's just so little you can do against the massive amounts of overhealth being generated by that Lucio ult. And with the Annihilation on top of it, that is as good of a cleanup as you can possibly hope for. Finally finishing off Regime. There is no heroics this time around. And in such a mirror of the last round, a 100-0%, Zodiacs have brought us to a 3rd round on Lijiang Tower.
I think Zodiacs really just realized that we have to essentially kill this team. They won't just die, right? When they thought we got to 99, all right, Boop Troop is just going to kind of die at that point. We've gotten them to that point where it'll happen. But no, you have to make sure you are continuously using like one ultimate, winning a fight, Ravenous Vortex off the edge of the map, little things like that have to be going in your favor consistently if you want to be beating this team. And I'm also noticing right here, it looks like Boop Troop is going to be going for the Baptiste variation of this comp. I don't know if I necessarily like the BAP as much as the Kiriko. You don't have the cleanse, and Kitsune Rush is just such a better ult than Amplification Matrix, but we will have to see if Boop Troop knows something that I don't necessarily know here.
Yeah, it's tough because, you know, if you have access to the Kiriko, and especially if your opposition is running the Kiri, you do really miss having all that benefit on your side of the fight as well. So we'll see if Salmon sticks with this at the long end of the day here. But we're fighting here in the Surfer's Room. This is such a back round, such a duel between the Tracers and Lucios here. But Raz is trying to make some presence here on this outside high ground on this Sojourn, building up these rail shots pretty handily here. Spies that there is a Lucio somewhere. Regime not able to get away with life intact this time here, as the rest of Boop Troop, I mean, you do still have Mari here on the objective, but she's a bit alone, just being held up by Salmon, and without that Baptiste, that is a tough fight to win if you are the sole remaining tank for your team, and that is everyone else falling down around her. She will get the kill onto Raz, has to be said. Certainly not out of this fight, but not much you can do in the face of the rest of the four still alive for Zodiacs.
I mean, good job getting your one, right? If you're going to die anyways, you may as well take somebody with you, so getting that little bit of a reset there is always a good thought to have. And now coming into this next fight, not really too much to speak of ult-wise. Both teams are going to have those pulse bombs online, and Mini P.E.K.K.A does have a good, solid lead in that sound barrier department, already at 70%.
Yeah, Regime falling so early in that fight does mean that they're not going to be at the same spot, of course, that Mini P.E.K.K.A is about to be, but Sterling finding the kill before even needing to spend that ultimate. However, Mari does able to find out Zexo there at the very end of this engagement, but it looks as though the kills are flipping in Boop Troop's favor. Despite going down early in this fight, they stick with it. This is exactly the sort of stick-to-itiveness, the exact sort of ability to dig your heels in that we saw got them through Night Market, and it was sorely missing for them on Gardens.
It most certainly was. I do think having that ROM mirror is definitely going to help you out a lot. Ghostin winning that 1v1 against Sterling can also help you out quite a bit too. You're basically at a point right now, if you're Boop Troop, you're probably going to force a few ultimates out of the Zodiacs if they want to try and take this main route here. I doubt they're going to, but again, a lot of ultimates going to be available for both sides here. I'm guessing an Amp Matrix coming out soon, yep.
Crucial not to overspend. That is an immediate fight win, essentially, as Salmon combines with Doc's rail shots there just to clean up this fight before it really kicks off. Now, Zodiacs did not spend anything, so crucially, they still have their full suite of 5 coming into this next one, but that is just another 20 or 25 seconds burned off the clock before this next fight begins.
I mean, that was a great Amp Matrix right there by Salmon, honestly, you know, showing the true power of the Baptiste, just being able to fire through that window and just get that absurd damage output. And here we are again, where I imagine some more ults are going to come out.
Yeah, these Ramachas looking directly at each other, embracing them with that annihilation rolling for both so far. Zexo just caught between a rock and a hard place as Regime is able to finish that kill. Immortality Field allowing the team from Boop Troop to stay alive for a few moments longer here, but Salmon crucially does fall, but not quite before Dexter falls at the hands of Mari. So very much the benefit on the side of Boop Troop here, having your tank still alive in this engagement, and so that's a heavy investment for Zodiacs for very little progress gained whatsoever.
Yeah, this is a tough spot to be in, too, if you're Zodiacs. And here comes the Malga. The man with the guns has shown up now. So you have a Malga, and you basically have overclocks on both sides. But that's really all you've got to try and engage in this fight with.
Yeah, Raz and Doc both have proved themselves very handy on this Sojourn. That is an almost burn down on Tamara, investing that Immortality Field early on here. Salmon really desperate to keep that tank alive, and in this fight, and Doc is able to clean up with that overclock. Incredible work out here from that Sojourn. Losing Ghostin does mean you have a lot of pressure being taken off the backline for Zodiacs, but Zexo is just so low, so much in danger here. Mini P.E.K.K.A as well falling dangerously low and has to play so carefully, and they just can't even touch the objective the further this fight goes on. And Boop Troop, they certainly bent in that second round on Gardens, but did not break and came back all the stronger to clean up on Control Center, taking the first map.
No, it really just shows that just being able to have that same level of point presence as the Ramatra does add a lot for you. Because as soon as the side of Boop Troop was able to have that same level of just survivability on the tank roll, it became immensely easier for them to just do everything else they really wanted to do. And you could just see it throughout the entirety of that third point. There wasn't near as much support pressure being laid down onto their team. The squishies weren't going down as often. Just just because you have the big man with the extra set of arms in front of you, you know?
Yeah, they certainly did not fold when it counted most. It was really impressive work the Boop Troop were able to, again, dig deep in their mental game and find themselves another comparable comp to roll out on, proving that the Ramatra mirror is something they're not at all afraid of, and their own variation of it. I mean, we mentioned at the start of the round there, that Baptiste actually paid dividends for them at the end of the day. Whether or not it was more valuable than Akiri would have been, but it certainly felt like, for Boop Troop at least, that was the comp that allowed them to find the difference and not play the full mirror, which I think is something they wanted to avoid. They wanted to play something that still has a similarity, and of course, running that Ram alongside Lucio does mean you're playing a lot of the similar angles and, you know, tempo essentially, but having that immortality field, even just the Emp Matrix to shut down 1 or 2 fights as they're kicking off, can burn you so much time off the clock that really adds up over the course of a single round.
Oh, absolutely. And you could just see like the tempo ulting is what I believe they call it, when you just drop a single ultimate right there at the beginning of the fight. I love the constant aggression that Boop Troop started to lay on once they were really able to. It didn't feel like they were able to play their game when they were running the Zarya. They played their game a little bit on the Doomfist, and we just saw it as they continuously went in and were just picking off one target early over and over and over again. But now if you're Zodiacs, you know, that's tough, because that realistically, that should have been your map that you just won. So like you gotta fortify those mentals, as you were talking about a little bit earlier, because you can't go into this map being like, oh, I can't believe we just tossed that map away. We had such a good opportunity. No, you just have to get rid of it and go on to the next map type, which is probably going to be Flashpoint, because everybody likes playing Flashpoint second for some reason. They're not hybrid believers like I am, but let's see if I'm right on that. Yeah, right on point. New Junk City. I was gonna guess Saravasa, but you know, we're in the same sort of ballpark, I guess.
Yes, I mean, of all the map types, it really is Flashpoint that plays most like Control. So if you feel like, for instance, like we were just talking about, that you really were kind of robbed, that you really had your chance there on Lijiang Tower, taking it to Flashpoint is kind of the closest thing you can get to having a redo, essentially, here. So if you want to be able to play your own game, and as we look at the bans, we'll see exactly how those affect what we want to run roster-wise. It's not exactly the same, of course. You still have to worry about the massive amount of distance that you're running, of course, which is why we almost never see Lucio not in these compositions on Flashpoint, just with how versatile and necessary that speed is. But if you don't want to run that, if you want to play a very different game here, Wu Young's going to be unbanned coming into this one here, and you're also going to have access to, I wouldn't expect to see a lot of Sim, honestly. She doesn't get a ton of play, but on these Flashpoints, she's more for Control, but again, I wouldn't put it past these teams. They both clearly have their own game plans set in mind, and unless they are forced to, I don't think they're going to deviate from their strategies coming into this.
No, I think we're going to see a lot of the same of what we just saw on map number 1. I think it's going to be more Ram Mirror, more Curie Lucio. Also, side note, you could opt for a BAP Lucio as well if you're going to play a more grouped up style DPS, but I also think that we might just see a Sojourn Tracer again, right? I think that's very highly likely. You could go for a Cast Tracer. It's a pretty close range map, generally speaking, but I guess it just more depends on what you're more comfortable with. Zodiac are going to have this first ban, and I wouldn't be surprised to see Zodiacs ban something like a Baptiste, because they want the full-on mirror. They're like, okay, give us the full mirror. We want you to run Kiriko too. We don't want to see anything different from what we're playing right now.
Yeah, you certainly want to take, again, if you found that was, you know, the golden bullet, essentially, the silver bullet for that situation, that might have been something you don't want them to run with here. If you want to force that mirror, if you feel like that's your better angle, yeah, I completely agree. That would be a solid ban coming out the gate for them here. Or if you felt like Ramatra is a mirror a bit slower, or your backline just a bit more vulnerable.
And then to follow that up, Boop Troop is going to ban out this Lucio, so no Lucio on Flashpoint, no Tracer on Flashpoint. That makes this kind of interesting. I feel like this airs us more towards like a Kiriko Wuyang style composition more than anything else. I feel like that's probably got to be your top backline selection here. And then with Tracer, you could have anything from, I doubt we'll see it, but you could run Soldier 76. It's essentially a Tracer, just like slower, moving around the map. We've seen teams use it time and time again for that exact same purpose. But I would honestly expect to see something more along the lines of a Venture instead, if I was to just take a guess at the DPS style we're going to be saying.
Read my mind. I was thinking the exact same thing. I think a Sojourn alongside a Venture could get insane amounts of damage being put through at incredibly high speeds onto your opposition. Yeah, without the Tracer and certainly without the Lucio, there's not much of a need to run Cassidy, so Doc hovering this pick. Again, there's still 20 seconds for them to make their decisions there. Really looked very solid on that Sojourn all through Lijiang Tower, so I think there's still plenty of room to continue with that hero. But if you still want to have, you know, that versatility of that close range damage that Cassidy can put through. I mean, he's had a little bit of nerfs in recent patches. Again, that's weeks and weeks ago now at this point, but I still remember, and of course, that 250 health pool is not exactly what it used to be, but we'll see if this lasts. We have the Reaper alongside the Mei for Zodiacs, and of course, with that Mauga leading the charge.
Oh, this is a gross composition that I'm seeing from the Zodiacs right now. I love it though, because it's just the whole team is just, let's get in there and let's do some close range damage, and here we are already getting in there, and there go 2 kills immediately going for the side of the Zodiacs.
Yeah, Zodiacs roll out on what I would charitably call an unkind composition, one that is not terribly considerate of your opponents and whatever they want to be working with here. You know you don't have to worry about the speed, you can just charge forward on someone else's face, and of course that Tracer could usually farm up so much damage on Amalga, but now she's not able to do that, not in this map whatsoever. I'll be surprised if we see this Zarya stick for much longer.
It's going to be tough to run the Zarya because the stomp, it essentially puts your Zarya in a death sentence immediately. You can just output so much damage in that short amount of time that stun lasts.
Yeah, and frankly, I would love to see Doc swap over 2 of that Sojourn. You can farm those rails so quickly onto this Mauga, but Cassidy, I mean, you just have to land so many headshots in a row to even make a dent in the massive body that is a Mauga. Dexter does fall, but we've lost 3 already on the side of Boob Troop, and Sturley is not slowing down anytime soon. There is 1 straggler on the objective, and it is going to be a stagger kill onto Salmon.
Oh, that's tough. You lose your Kiriko last, now you got to reset. And Mari saying there's going to be no more fun had here today. And the Orisa now comes out. A solid answer for the Mauga for sure, at least historically. We'll see if it can work quite as well today. Raz about to come up on this Blizzard as well. This Mei getting some high value.
Crucially, someone's got to touch the objective, and it is going to be Mari, but she's paying for that objective with her life. Zexo takes down that Orisa. So yeah, usually plays such an excellent counter, but that is very much not an optimal situation to find yourself in, where someone needs to touch, and it has to be the Orisa. Not exactly the speediest member of that team, but ghosting on this Mei, I like to see that hero mirrored in particular here from Boop Troop.
Yeah, it really stops. It's going to stop Dexter from just going wherever they want to. It's the same sort of principle that you have when you're playing Reinhardt into a Mei. You can't just mindlessly walk forward anymore, so you got to love that pick.
Yeah, the Kiri Juno as well for Boob Troop now at this point here. I do like the flexibility this offers you. However, you do have to be very careful. These are 2 very squishy supports if they are not actively being teleported or in the sky here. And so we've lost Mari already, but Mini P.E.K.K.A falling down as well does mean that Rally is no longer in the hands of Zodiacs for this fight. The further drags on, and Salmon is absolutely on the warpath here, cleaning up the tank and Raz at the end of this engagement. But Sturley with the 3K on the Death Blossom. Devastating stuff. That is no flip here for Boob Troop. There is no more fun to be had. The Reaper has decided this door is closed.
Oh my god, that is like, that right there is the reason I love Reaper. Reaper is such a simple character, but you can just be so blatant with his ultimate and still get an absurd amount of value with it right there. It's like you teleport in the middle of 3 people and press your Q, and you just instantly get max value. That was a weird interaction with that Mei wall that I just saw.
Yep, you see it, and then it's gone just as quickly there. Doc with that Deadeye immediately goes down. The stationary Cassidy does not make for an excellent target. As the Blizzard rolling out here for both teams, it is the side of Zodiacs able to actually benefit from it. A massive investment from Boob Troop there. That is 3 ults spent in that fight for absolutely nothing. Poor Rashim at the end of that. Oh, brutal stagger once again.
Oh man, and with such an insane exchange of ultimates right there, and to just get no real value out of it if you're Boop Troop, that is a tough spot to get stuck in. Raz's Blizzard in particular, just getting that 3K immediately was just tough. And you are going to have a last second touch here, but I don't know what you can really do with a Terra Surge.
Once again, there's that Orisa who is quite literally on fire from that incendiary chain gun. You know, that difficult place to put yourself in at the very start of this engagement. But the Terra Surge here trying to lock up those remaining members of Zodiacs, but only Dexter even eats a chip of damage from it. And there's just not a ton of value gain whatsoever. You're not able to lock up those more flexible, mobile members. However, Raz falling down first is an excellent start to this engagement here as Boop Troop just desperate to actually get 1 point in their favor. They do not want to go down 2-0 here on New Junk City, and it looks as though they finally have the flip, but they have quite a task ahead of them at matching this 99% being gained for the Zodiacs.
Yeah, I mean, still great fight win there for the side of Boop Troop. You didn't really have anything, and then Ghostin just landing a couple of those icicles and getting the kill on their counterpart was really the big key for that fight. There's a Kitsune Rush available for Boop Troop, as well as the Orbital Ray coming online for the Zodiacs. You could see a big-time Death Blossom coming in soon from Sterling, too.
Opening this up with the Kitsune Rush here for Boop Troop, Salmon goes ahead and lays down the bricks of that ult, but it is the Blizzard out from Ghostin, locking up the full squad of the Zodiacs there. Only Sterling able to get away, but that might be a Pyrrhic victory as best. The rest of the team already fallen, no one to defend that Reaper. A little bit too blatant there of a move, and of course does have that Death Blossom ready to go, but we're in final fight territory for this point.
And Boop Troop still has a good ult bank of their own here, and they're going to play this very aggressively. Probably not even going to allow Zodiacs to get a touch, unless, of course, Dexter gets a kill onto Ghostin early. Can't happen.
That is as good an opening pick as you can possibly hope for, but Dexter charging into the objective, not able to touch. Mari gets the kill, and there's no overtime triggered whatsoever. The insurance policy of that overclock rolling here for Doc, but yeah, just finding a couple more fish in this lovely barrel that the Ducks provides to you. Cleaning up Mini Peck at the end of this one, an excellent stagger there. Zodiacs didn't spend in that engagement, but still are very much going to be on the back foot coming into Refinery.
Yes, they absolutely will be. They're going to have a really nice ult bank here to work with, but that Orbital Ray being online for Regime, I think, is going to be the tough thing that you're going to have to work through here. It's a lot of healing and the damage amplification as well, and you have to go into Boop Troop in order to get this fight started.
Yeah, and Salmon's just farming damage and healing here at all times. Gonna have a Kitsune Rush ready in this next fight, or if this one drags on long, that is a massive Terra Surge coming out on the back of that Orbital Ray. Incredible stuff out here from Boop Troop. The combination of those two ults is just what you need to clinch this first fight in your favor. No spend there from the Zodiacs, but that's another fight well and truly taken down. And on Flashpoint, these points tick up so fast.
Oh, they certainly do. You do lose the Blizzard from Raz. There wasn't really much you could do in that situation, though. Like I said, you were going into those really strong ultimates that Boop Troop has. And again, you're doing the same thing here again. A Kitsune Rush is online from Salmon, and I think it's going to be really tough for you to manage to break through that ultimate.
Surely desperate to do so, though. That cage match into a Death Blossom could be destructive, and you do get tons of damage. Finally cleaning up Doc, but does fall for his trouble. So that is going to be a 1-for-1 trade here. Ghostin, though, does get taken down by your opposite in Raz. Raz cleaning up 2 kills as this fight drags on. Dexter able to hound down the remaining members. It is Mari who's just able to get back to the rest of the squad, but that is an excellent and timely flip here for the Zodiacs.
It absolutely was. It was an incredibly expensive flip for the Zodiacs as well. You burned 4 ultimates there. Raz going to be your closest, 70% on that Blizzard. Ghostin is going to have their Blizzard online for the side of Boop Troop, as well as the Overclock is coming on, and the Terra Surge is not far behind. This is going to be a tough fight for you to win if you're the Zodiacs.
Yeah, very little tools to deal with this Blizzard here. You can already see Zodiac's just desperate to get away from it, so that's just a massive zoning tool essentially being gained here as Doc with this Overclock cleans up 2. Raz and Dexter make it a 3rd for Doc as Zexo cleanly taken out at the shoulders. That is a massive team kill for Boop Troop. And I mean, it's going to be so tough to even touch the objective here for Zodiacs.
Yeah, it's the same issue that was had on the last point, right? You're just stuck at an awkward timing where I think it might be better for you to just give this point up and go to the next one, but it does look like the Zodiacs are at least going to walk in the direction of getting a touch.
Yeah, on the back of that Maywell out from Ghostin, the decision kind of made for them. No chance to get back to Refinery, so we're already moving on to our next flashpoint here. And now, Boop Troop, I mean, the strength of their composition on the Ducks, the way they're able to, rotate around and make their adjustments there, has allowed them to put themselves at map point here. There's only one more flashpoint they need to clean this one up, and Zodiacs, they find themselves at a deficit, themselves in danger of losing this entire map.
Yeah, Zodiacs have to win this next fight right now because Boop Troop are about to build up to both support ults, and that is not a spot you want to be stuck in. You already lost Zexo, and that's just, yeah, this is fight over. We'll try again on the next fight. But again, now you're going to be walking into double support ults in the next fight.
Yeah, and of course, on the other side of the Zodiacs, you were hoping to build up towards those support ultimates. Zexo staying alive a few moments longer could have built you the percentage you need, and the rest of it could just be time tricking up towards that orbital array. So without that, coming into both from Boop Troop as well as that Blizzard, I mean, that's essentially a fight win if they play their cards right.
Yes, absolutely. There's always a chance, there's always a chance, but it's going to involve Boop Troop making a big-time mistake as opposed to you making a really good play.
Yeah, but as we've seen so far from this team, you cannot count on that. But losing Regime early on here, that is a massive win for the Zodiacs and a huge blow to Boot Troop. Losing Mari as well, this has got to spell the end of this engagement here. Ghostin spent the Blizzard when they were already down 2 bodies. I mean, that is a devastating loss of ultimates here. You are getting a good 70% here on on bomb flats, but that's kind of all you're going to get for it. And spending 2 ults, I mean, that's a heavy price to pay.
I mean, that's a prime example of what I was just talking about right there. You needed something like that to happen if you're the Zodiacs to give you a nice opening here to continue winning these fights, right? You've got dueling orbital rays online, and you have a Death Blossom, whereas Boop Troop no longer has their Blizzard online, so this is a prime opportunity for you to try and retake this point.
Dexter's swap to this Orisa has had Regime's number every single time in these fights since the switch to that particular here. Regime just being found out at the start of these fights 2 in a row at this point here is not something that Boop Troop can allow to happen if they want to have any chance of holding on to this point or even the final one coming in their way. I mean, they haven't had a chance to spend that orbital array in either of the last 2 fights.
No, they certainly have not. Zodiacs have been very aggressive, which is exactly how you have to play this point in order to just maintain that strong control. Here is the moment, though, where you can get some of that point pressure going if you're Boop Troop.
I like this rotation out, but that does put them in a tough situation. They are very much in a small corridor with a Reaper with ult. Yeah, cleans up Salmon, takes out Ghostin. And despite the heroics, despite the spending of another 2 ultimates, make that 3, Mari used that Terra Surge and did not really get much value for it, cleaning up Zexo. But again, that is a Pyrrhic victory with the point flip, not quite enough to make it in swing your way, at least here for Boop Troop. So we are going to a final flashpoint here on New Junk City.
I mean, that's the only way it can be, right? These 2 teams have been incredibly close so far, so it makes perfect sense. We're going to go to a point number 5 here. And coming into this fight, Mini P.E.K.K.A going to have the lead on that Kitsune Rush, and that you have to use your Kitsune Rush incredibly well here. It's the only advantage you really have over Boop Troop in this fight.
Yeah, it feels like Mario was benefiting so much from playing into that Malga, but now that Dexter has made the swap, Mirror is proving somewhat difficult for Boop Troop to deal with here, though you do wall off your opposing Orisa directly into a rush from your own side, so Zodiac's still able to surge forward here and clean up that wall in no time flat. So much damage, so much healing coming out from this squad. They're not troubled by a little thing like a bit of ice here. Boop Troop, yeah, they didn't have much to spend in that fight, and, crucially did not spend the 1 ultimate they had, so that's a bit of a victory for you, but that is first control gained here for Zodiacs.
And that's that ult advantage coming in handy right there, right? Mini P.E.K.K.A having that slight lead over Salmon. You manage to get your Kitsune Rush off and force Boop Troop to not really be able to use theirs. You are going to have your overclock online here if you're Raz, so Raz really needs to pop off in this fight if the side of Zodiacs want to hold this point.
Rush to kick things off here for Boop Troop, determined to actually make some aggression on this point here. Dexter falls dangerously low, but it's Zexo the first one to fall as Doc has that rail shot ready to go. Cleans up, and as well, so many members already falling here from Zodiacs as Raz has the overclock rolling. It is now the side of Zodiacs who are not benefiting from an ult rolling just a few seconds too late.
Yeah, that's tough if you're Zodiacs. If you're Raz at that point, once you see 3 of your teammates go down, that's probably the sign to just run off, save the overclock for the next fight. I love the idea of the hero play right there, but realistically, you could have saved it for this fight and had like an insane ult bank to work with here. You're still going to have it as the Terra Surge comes out early.
Still 3 ults to work with, 2 being spent already off the rip here. The Terra Surge allowing Dexter to clean up Doc, so playing down a body, make that 2. Zexo falls to Mari, but there's still only 3 bodies alive here as they spend the Orbital Ray. That is a heavy investment from Regine as this fight is already cleaned up in Zodiac's favor. I don't know, that feels like an overinvestment to me.
It's been that way, like I said, the last few fights, either way, somebody's overinvested an ult here or there. But like you said, that was pretty much last fight, so I don't see a reason to not burn that ultimate because I don't think there's really going to be a point touch here.
Yeah, the most they can do is touch the objective. Ghostin about to have this Death Blossom online, but is anyone around to keep this Reaper alive? Salmon already falling, just about to touch that Kitsune Rush, but no chance whatsoever here. 2 kills already, make it 3. Doc might just be saving this one to Root to make it a 4th. Doc is on the warpath, gets 3 kills with that overclock, gets 4, taking down the opposite in Raz. Incredible work here from this Sojourn, really coming alive with that hero play.
Oh my goodness, and Boop Troop is actually set up to hold this point too. Salmon has a Kitsune Rush that can match Mini P.E.K.K.A. So you're left here with the big differentiator again is going to be Raz with this overclock, the same as we had a few fights ago. So that's really your only differentiating factor here. Maybe Sturley gets up to this Death Blossom, but that's really about it.
Crucially, Mario swapped over to the Diva here. I'd love this into the Orisa, and not a moment too soon as Dexter falls down first. You were counting on that late game Terra Surge having that Orisa to anchor around, and without that tank, you are just paddling up a stream without a canoe. It is 1 by 1 falling on the side of Zodiacs here. Boop Troop has cleaned this one up, starting that last fight off with such a bang. Clear target acquisition for them. Incredible hero play out from Doc in the previous one, just to keep this one alive here. It is the touch, trickling last second here for Dexter on the Wrecking Ball. We'll see if we can get a clean up. Nope, not even able to touch to keep it alive. Boob Troop, off some last-minute heroics, will go up in this series 2-0 and go to match point.
And it's been so close, 2 maps in a row now. Zodiacs are like right there, but they just couldn't quite get over the hump. There were fights here and there where they had the advantage and weren't able to take that advantage. And then you go into a fight like this where Doc has your only really huge ultimate online and manages to get a 4K there at the last moment. That was the 99% fight on point number 5. That was the fight. And Boop Troop just at every turn that it seems like they're finally going to collapse and lose the fight inevitably, they just don't. They pop some sort of crazy ultimate right there in the last fight. After that, for instance, they have just a Kitsune Rush. That is enough for them to overpower the 3 ultimates that the side of the Zodiacs have. And it's just consistently happening time and time again across both the first 2 maps so far.
It's been so tough. I mean, you really have to feel for the Zodiacs at this point, making everything go their way just to have it turn on a dime at the last second. But folks, we're going to take a quick break before we dive into our 3rd map of the series here. This is going to be another choice here for the Zodiacs, but a chance for Boop Troop to wrap this all up in 3. Stick around, you do not want to miss the final results. Welcome back, folks. We are here in our upper bracket finals between these two teams, kicking things off in this series. I mean, we've opened things up here in 2-0 fashion for Boop Troop. The Zodiacs very much on the back foot here. They're just trying to stay alive here in the winner's bracket. If they lose, they're not going home just yet, but they have to go down to the lower bracket and battle their way through a further 2 matches just to get back up here for a rematch here. Whoever wins has their ticket punched to the grand finals.
Yes, they certainly do. You don't want to get knocked down to that lower bracket. You'd much rather just go on, get to the grand finals, get it over with and now. But it's been an insanely close series so far. These first 2 maps have both been like very close to being both wins for the Zodiacs, but Boop Troop have just managed to pull it out in the last second. And with the Zodiacs' final map pick, they have decided to go with Circuit Royale here. So taking us to, we've gone to basically 2 brawl maps, and now we're going to a pure poke style map with that Circuit Royale. Let's get something completely different on the table now, Zodiac says.
Yeah, in terms of playstyle, I'm sure I could play more differently from our previous 2 maps. In the series here, Lijiang Tower and Nujunk City very much have their similarities, but Circuit Royale, this is about, despite being a newer map on average here in terms of Overwatch 2 versus Overwatch 1 lifetime, is about as traditional a long-range escort poke map as you could possibly hope for here. So yeah, this signals to me that Zodiacs are desperate to take things in a different direction. They are very much eager not to play the exact same game they were, because they found that even in those mirrors, when the chips were down, when it got desperate, when the fighting was scrappy and determined to be down to like single heroic actions, unfortunately, it was Boop Troop kind of winning out in those moments every single time.
It was very consistent. Boop Troop just had that clutch gene, that clutch factor. Every single time they needed a crazy play to be made, it was indeed made. Zodiacs are going to have this first ban available to them as well. And this is, I always find it a very difficult map to try and ban on Circuit Royale. Like, this could be something as simple as, hey, we go and ban tanks, we can save the Sigma because we're trying to play the pure poke style. Or it could be something along the lines of, we don't want to play Freya, we don't want to play Freya, let's get rid of Freya. We don't want to see exactly the RE, get rid of that. Or it could be that you ban the Sigma itself because we don't want to do that.
Now, it should be noted, despite this being considered such a Sigma map, you don't have to. You could just run the same comps you've kind of been running all day here if you are the Zodiacs. That is certainly an angle. You just want to have to play it on a different map style. If you feel that good about your composition, I don't know. I just would not like to take that mirror once again here. Boop Trip now have the ball in their court. I mean, if you're not going to play the Sigma, that does kind of open things up a little bit. You're not looking to just play that poke, or if you are, you can run that Ramatra, who is able to dip in and out of the brawl and poke style pretty adeptly here.
Yeah, you know, Ramatra is the tempo tank, as they introduced him as, if I'm recalling correctly what Blizzard said. I was gonna say May. I should have got quicker to my point, because it makes sense to me, right? You get rid of the Sigma, you're forced into a brawl style. What stops you from really having to think about what you're doing in a brawl style? Get rid of May. You don't have to really think that hard anymore. It's like, all right, are we able to walk forward? Do we all have our cooldowns? Good, let's do it.
Yeah, and that May, again, both teams ended up playing May, the further we got into Flashpoint on New Junk City, but it really felt like May was such a driving force of the Zodiac's composition here. Boop Trooper only felt like they had to play it just in answer to it. You really couldn't have that flexibility of a May without running into one of your own. So that really, I think, is a strong ban. I fully agree that that is a good pick here, especially knowing that Sigma is off the table. You do not want to run into those walls, to have to deal with those blizzards. And of course, positioning is always important in every map of Overwatch, but even on these maps, on these escort maps, on these very long, just in terms of pure distance to cover, positioning is kind of everything here. And May is so good at forcing position, is so good at forcing you in a place where you don't want to be and putting you in a tight corridor, especially if you're trying to run that May Reaper. You're down one of the most important tools. Obviously, it's a bit in the name in terms of the composition there.
Very true indeed. It leads you into more of like a Soj Reaper, Soj Tracer. On this map in particular, you might even see something like Freya. We tend to see a lot of Widow on this map too, but if you run the Brawl style, you might want to try and avoid the Widowmaker. So I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see what these two teams do decide to play now that the Sigma's out of the question, but I would anticipate maybe not so much the Widowmaker, leaning more towards the Freya.
Yeah, these teams have both favored having that flexibility that I think the Freya would certainly highlight for your team. Having the opportunity to play at incredible range, but also still having the hyper mobility that Freya certainly has available as core to her kit. And looking on the defense, yep, we've got the Sojourn and Freya. Honestly, I'm loving this composition out from them so far. I think Mini P.E.K.K.A on this Wu Young alongside Zexo's Baptiste is an excellent... It's a flexible, more mobile kind of bunker, I think. You have the option to really stick on a point, but you have plenty of mobility available to you. You can certainly get chauffeured around by your Wu Yang. That Ramatra, again, being... I have a bone to pick with them calling him a tempo tank because Nemesis form is a cooldown, and the only actual tempo tank we have is Wrecking Ball because he can swap in and out of form, but that's beside the point. Blizzard and I are good friends apart from that. But looking at the offense here, we have Mari again. They're determined to make this Zarya work. Shadowfang, what do you make of that?
I would say I'm not a huge fan of the Zarya on this map. You just don't have the requisite range, really, I feel like, at least to try and deal with any of these squishy targets. And you don't have the durability of a Ramatra to just really hold an angle. So you're kind of not doing well enough at anything to really make this tank work, I feel like.
Yeah, I cannot but agree. Just having a tough time into this incredible long range, especially dealing with this Freya. I mean, you can just burst those Zarya bubbles and then get to work on her health bar in no time whatsoever. And she can't even benefit from using all that built-up charge against you if you're playing in the skybox, like Raz is so keen to do here. But Boot Troops still are holding strong around this first point here. Doc on this Widowmaker is proving to be such a threat, and Ghostin now piloting the Sojourn still more than adeptly here. Has to be a bit careful in this high ground. Does have that rail charge fully built up, but still pretty vulnerable here, very much in the sights of Raz as well. So, of course, the Baptiste out from Zexo, having to use the Immortality Fuel just to stay alive here. I mean, this defense is kind of crumbling here for the Zodiacs. Boot Troop have really found a good angle here and kind of making us both eat our words. I think the Zarya works. Turns out they know something we don't, which I guess is probably why they're the ones in the server. We're the ones who get to yap about it. So that is point A taken with 5 minutes in the bank.
It was really just great angle usage from the side of Boop Troop. They, like you mentioned it midway through the fight there, they're not really allowing the side of the Zodiacs to get comfortable, and they're kind of funneling them into a kill box for the side of Mari to just walk at with this full charge Zarya. Right? Sturley taking down Ghostin is an opening for the side of the Zodiacs, though, to potentially get a retake in this fight.
This first push is the most crucial for the offense here. If you can hold strong and find yourself a high ground position, and they're determined to make this one work. The Tidal Blast has been laid onto that Zarya, but she's still pretty vulnerable here without the backline to benefit her in this enclosed space. And we're seeing the sort of limits of this composition here. It's an unfortunate place to stick the payload as you have to fight into this. And it is Regime here with this Captive Sun out from the ER, just determined to use that ultimate, gets one for it. So I guess that is a benefit. I'm expecting to see Regime swap over here coming to this next fight.
I would be surprised if Regime does not swap. That was a petty ultimate too, by the way. Just throwing it right on Raz and just being like, nah, you're gonna die to this right now. That's just what's gonna happen here. Infrasights do come out from Doc as the grapple gets tragically missed right there in that moment. It happens to everybody. Ghostin going to have this overclock online for this next fight. Mari already taking down Zexo though, and nice shot coming through from Doc.
Really clean work. I mean, you kind of forget that the Infrasight is still running there, Boop Troop. Excellent work, excellent playing of their position here. Mari's just able to, I mean, you called it perfectly, just put them in a position that is just so uncomfortable for this defense to be, and then you just have Doc line up these shots, or Ghostin let in with those railgun as well. So, Boop Troop, I mean, making it look easy. They bent at a single fight there, but still almost 5 minutes coming into point C. Yeah, that's not nothing.
No, it is certainly not. It is a lot. And Boop Troop is really just out-positioning Zodiacs right now on this map. At least that's what it looks like to me, right? Look at how they're already on this high ground, pressuring. And you've got a Lucio basically escorting this Zarya around at max charge. And here goes the nice bubble and the overclock coming in.
Love the bubbles on to that Sojourn. Ghostin, however, does get a little bit too close as Ra's able to clean up those crossbow bolts. Absolutely devastating at any range. Gets 2 for their trouble as Regime also falls. It's going to be the end of Boop Troop's push for a few moments longer here. Let's see if Zodiacs can find any further stagger kills. Yeah, got someone in your sights. Doc just able to scooch away with that health bar mostly intact, but plenty of ults for Zodiacs here.
I mean, we're really seeing why that Widowmaker gets played so much on this map. You can just control so much space just by looking in a direction with Widowmaker. That one-shot capability is insane. High ultimates available, every ultimate available for the side of the Zodiacs here in this fight, and you're going to need to use at least some of them early here to try and win this fight.
Every inch of progress though gained for Boop Troop here is absolutely massive, and of course you still have to think about that on the other side of things. Zodiacs still have to make a push, get at least this far and surpass it if they want to stay alive in this series here. Mari taken down, and yeah, we're starting to see the limitations of this composition here in these more narrow corridors, these more tight corners here on the third point. And it is no ult spent by the Zodiacs. Incredible restraint here from the defense.
That's just great vision from the side of the Zodiacs. Once they see the one ultimate goes, or the one kill goes in their favor, they realize they don't need to burn their ultimates. This grab could be incredibly strong from Boop Troop, though. Zodiacs do not have a defensive ultimate available to them except for the immortality field, of course.
Yeah, crucially, Boop Troop able to build up towards a nearly full slate of ultimates in that last fight there. So despite not winning the fight, they may have won the war as Mari and Regime, I mean, a two-person wrecking crew on that high ground. They are now at the spawn doors of the Zodiacs here, who have not spent a single ultimate, yes, but they're also all in spawn right now as that carton is just beating a hasty path towards the full cap that they're aiming for here. And it's just so difficult to even leave the doors as you've got Salmon here ready with that Tidal Blast. Sides benefit from it themselves and is just going to layer directly onto that Sojourn. But on the opposite side, Mini Package is spent as well, but it's not going to matter here as the Sound Barrier comes out from Regime. I don't know if it benefited very many members of the squad, but it looks as though it might not matter. As the dust settles, the ultimates come trickling out from the Zodiacs. Nary a body on the side of Boop Troop falling in answer, and that is just an incredible control here of Point C. 2 minutes, 3 seconds in the time bank. That may not look like much, folks, but that is an incredible time bank being gained here. A full cap on offense of Circuit Royale is nothing to sneeze at.
Oh yeah, cap it all is crazy on circuits. Get 2 minutes and 3 seconds just means you were really dominant on that map. And I mean, I really feel like a lot of it was just the angles that Doc and Ghostin were consistently taking. They were just allowing Mari to just kind of continuously walk forward into the side of the Zodiacs because, again, you're so worried about this Widowmaker, this Freya, this Sojourn. I think it was just Widowmaker Freya, actually, for the side of Boop Troop the entire time. You're so concerned about that spam damage coming in from range that you can't even think about this max charge Zarya that's coming at you, and then boom, there's a Zarya in your face at max charge. It's just... It's a really good composition, but you have to be landing your shots, and Boop Troop are certainly doing that so far.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it plays here on the defense. The Symmetra is back after the first map of the series here, so Ghostin piloting that. Whereas Doc here on this Ashe really favoring the long sight lines and of course high ground availability for you here on the defense. I'm honestly more curious to see what Zodiacs want to run here for their offense. I don't know if you can, I mean, you could certainly run that same composition. That is certainly a possibility for you here. It works almost as well on the offense as the defense, but they're instead hovering this Diva comp here with Zexo on the Ana. So plays a bit slower, but of course, rather the Ana plays slower. Everything else playing at a much faster tempo. Sterling here on this Echo. They're determined to get some high ground presence here.
I love the Echo pick here. It's going to be tough trying to deal with Doc on this Ashe, but once that is out of the way, this Echo will just rain damage upon the other enemy team.
I mean, that beam just feels so devastating here. Even at close range, the distance being gained here, Mari is able to build up towards a solid amount of charge here. And of course, able to play around these corners so effectively that you don't even have to worry so much about actually getting bursted down. There's so much natural cover here on the defense. And of course, they just ran through this one on the offense here. So they know fully what it takes to make this one work. Oh, that's a crisp headshot out there from Doc. And so Sterling has to back up for a few more moments here, get topped up. Dexter answering here on a Zarya of his own. So Zodiacs are trying to make this mirror work, of course, into the Zarya. The Diva has such a difficult time. That beam, nothing you can do to stop it here. But Doc able to find that distance pick onto Raz. Yeah, no build-up necessary for an Ashe here.
And again, it's like Doc isn't doing that much in terms of ult charge, but Doc is just denying angles from the DPSs right now. Same thing that was really happening on round number 1. You're just denying angles, so now everybody's funneled into this Zarya that already has grab online.
Ghostin here is trying to make any of these back routes, any sort of angle you're trying to take to maintain a level of cover here from this front line, entirely immaterial. The sentry turrets provide so much damage and slowing of capability here on the approach that there's nowhere for you to go that you're not going to eat so much damage as you're trying to make your way to the objective here. And despite losing Ghostin, Boop Troop not too bothered by that. Of course, the run back for Zodiacs is functionally nil, but Boop Troop still, that's 2 minutes burned off the clock already.
Raz getting Salmon is going to result in a retreat, I imagine, here, so you'll get a good bit of cart push off of that. Losing Doc is tough too, because that's a long reset that you're going to have to take now. You do have the sound barrier online for Regime if you absolutely need to use it, but you should just be able to back up out of this fight pretty easily if you're Boop Troop.
Yeah, I think the swap for Raz was absolutely perfectly timed, not a moment too soon here. Very necessary. They need some kind of pressure to go toe-to-toe with Doc at range. But the grab out from Dexter, locking up the Boop Troop here. The sound barrier in return. That is a 1-for-1 trade right now. And yeah, that is very much the Boop Troop coming out the better in that fight, as Zodiacs don't even get a chance to overspend in that engagement there. Not even getting a chance to run back to spawn. A team kill for the team in red.
Zexo continuing to get theirs, getting Ghostin again. I don't know how, that's an odd thing that happened twice now, that Zexo got Ghostin at the end of that fight twice. But, I mean, now here we are. Copy already getting burnt, and then the Bob coming out in response to it.
Yeah, that is just so much focus being given towards the Bob here for a few moments longer. Sterling on this Zarya, not doing a ton of damage so far. Might not get a chance to build up to that grab, but Raz eats so much just as they're trying to round this corner here. Sterling, though, finding the better of Doc is absolutely crucial. That is the main threat to your Echo in the sky. But an incredible sim wall out here from Ghostin might be just the thing to buy the time for Doc to get back in this fight. Raz still has to play from this low ground here and into the sim wall. There's just so little you can actually do. Very minimal options to actually put damage through here as Salmon gets the better of Dexter. That is another fight in the can for Boop Troop, and we're down to 15 seconds for the Zodiacs. Are they going to get a chance to touch here? This grab is locking up the Bob. Oh, poor Bob. Little wolf in grandma's clothing there, and we're down to sub 10 seconds here. Boop Troop, they have held strong on this defense. Zodiacs, their entire series, their entire lifeline in this upper bracket is on the line here. We have the ball swap coming through, but will it be enough? They finally touched the point. Overtime wick is burning, but so are the health pools of Zodiacs. Boop Troop holds strong on the defense. Turns out you didn't even need the full cap if your opponent doesn't cap A. A clean 3-0 sweep for Boop Troop. They will go on, and they have booked their ticket to the grand finals.
And I mean, just watching this happen time and time again on every map, you can really see the difference between Boop Troop and basically every other team in the tier so far. And it's just the angles that they continuously take. Everybody is on a different angle, shooting you from a different spot, so you can't really defend it because there's always somebody shooting you in the back in some capacity. And they did such a good job this entire game of funneling the Zodiacs into exactly where they wanted them to fight at and putting them in a spot where it was really easy for Doc to kill them. It was easy for Mari to land a 3-person grab. Like, they were making it easier for them to do these great plays, whereas for the Zodiacs, it was taking an incredibly difficult play for them to do the exact same thing.
Yeah, it really felt that at every angle, it was like Zodiacs were just not able to stand up to what Boop Troop was running here, kind of outplaying their opposition the further and further we got into this. It looked very close. Lijiang Tower went to 3 rounds, and of course, we had to go all the way to 5 on Flashpoint, New Junk City, but Circuit Royale, unfortunately, was kind of a different game entirely here. It really felt like we were watching Boop Troop get stronger, build momentum as they went through the series, and just Zodiacs got worn down by all those close losses. I mean, you cannot really overstate how much that's going to tax you. You really feel like you should have won that fight. You should have won that map. You should have won that point. And it just kind of snowballs into a situation where you see a full cap on offense and a full hold on defense. I mean, Boop Troop, very obviously the better team today. And honestly, I agree. Best team right now in the division.
I mean, it's been the case the whole season, so it's not super surprising, but it was looking like, it looks like, I think if these two teams were to play again, the Zodiacs can definitely take at least a map off of them, if not more, because they're closer to Boop Troop than they probably think they are after this game they just played.
Yeah, it was certainly close. One of those, the scoreline does not tell the full story here. But folks, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back in just a few moments. Do not go anywhere. Welcome back, everybody. We just got to see a 3-0 here from Boot Troop over the Zodiacs. They have stumped their ticket to the grand finals here for our open division in NA. They get a brief moment of respite here while the lower bracket resolves itself with a few more games left to go, but in the meantime, we have an interview here with our team manager for Boot Troop here. It is Funny Man. Thank you so much for joining us. So we'll dive right into our interview here. First of all, I gotta ask, I know that was a 3-0 series, but it was honestly really close in the minute to minute. How did you guys rally at the very end of New Junk City there?
New Junk City, I mean, it was a lot of just like swapping stuff around. Like obviously we started on the Zarya, we saw that it didn't work, going to the Ori, and then Salmon and Regime kind of do their thing. And then Ghostin, they haven't been playing much, so we subbed them in today because Jeremy was absent. He's usually the venture guy, and we have him in, but we had Ghostin in today. They played pretty well, so yeah.
All right, I'm going to actually go back to Lijiang Tower there. How were you feeling watching when you just saw what honestly looked like a pretty dominant first map from the side of the Zodiacs, and then your team just goes Doomfist and flips it around? Is that like nerve-wracking to you as a coach, or were you like, oh, I guess we're just Doomfisting it up now?
Seeing third POVs, it's like kind of weird because you see everyone's POV, like you can click around and see what everyone's doing, and team was just like, okay, we're losing the macro, we're just gonna out-mechanic them. And so everyone kind of went their comfort heroes, like Salmon went BAP, Molly went up to Doom, and then Ram. So just comfort heroes, mechanics, like we know that we're high rank, we're the better players, so yeah, just easy from there.
I mean, it makes perfect sense to me. That's what it seemed like. At least y'all were just pushing that heavy tempo and just immediately not letting the Zodiacs get comfortable at all. With that being said, with this being the winners finals, y'all moving to the grand finals now, is there any team in the tier that you really think can compete with you guys at this point? Or is it just going to be easy 3-0 once we get to the finals here? Or I guess 4-0 once we're in the finals.
Easy 4-0. I think Zodiacs, rank-wise, they're the highest. So yeah, besides them, and we just proved that we could 3-0 them pretty easily with subs today. So besides them, I don't think the competition is too hard. I think we're going for that first spot, maybe 4-0, maybe 4-1 if we get too comfortable. But yeah, we're gonna win this tourney.
All right, last question from me. Is there anything we haven't seen so far from Boot Troop that you're looking forward to breaking out for the grand finals? Or has it been cards on the table the entire time, just playing what works for you guys?
It's like I said, it's mostly been mechanics and comfort. So like, unless I have a player who wants to like play something off meta, we usually just play what best heroes are at or whatever people want to play, like today.
All right,
Ghostin was
sounds
feeling
good.
the Reaper and the Venture, and then they switch around to the Mei. Like it's whatever like my players really want to play, and that's it.
I mean, it certainly worked for them, so really can't argue with that logic. Before we let you go, anyone you want to thank or shout out before we go?
Shout out Doc, shout out Ghostin for subbing in today. Really good people, really nice, amazing. Shout out to everyone on Boop Troop, obviously. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you.
All right, Funny Man, thank you so much for joining us, folks. We'll be seeing, of course, plenty more of this team. They are going to be in our grand finals here for the Open Division, but there is still quite a few matches to solve before that one comes to fruition here. It is now in the lower bracket. It's going to be the Zodiacs have to battle their way through 2 more rounds if they want to get that rematch in the grand finals. But of course, there are some hungry teams down there who they themselves need to actually, or rather, they will have one more to deal with in that case, but still plenty of hungry teams down there. The winner of Tarnish versus whoever they're facing next could honestly put a massive wrench in Zodiac's plan going forward.
What's actually going to be Primordius Rising. That was the other match that just occurred. You can see it right here. We have the 3-0 going in the favor of Primordius Rising. You got to love those threes right there. Very, very well drawn by our production staff. You love to see it. But going to add on to that, we have a Cuddle Puddle Aura Fury match in, what is that, like 30 minutes, I do believe. That's about 30 minutes from now. We'll be having that match ticking off in the Diamond tier. Diamond tier has been super competitive this season, so you'll definitely want to stick around and check that out in about 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, folks, so again, there's still plenty more CGL happening tonight, so make sure you catch that next game this evening. But that's going to do it for us for this match here. So thank you so much for joining us, and of course, tune in for the rest. And the playoffs are not over by a long shot, so next time we are live, look forward to seeing the rest of the CGL playoffs.